Namaskar and welcome. On behalf of India Science and the Department of Science and Technology, I, Nidhi Kumar, extend a very warm welcome to you on this program today. I now request our esteemed dignitaries to light the lamp of knowledge.
Shubham kurutvam kalyanam Arogyam dhana sampadah Shatru buddhi vinashaya Deepajyotir namostute Deepajyotir namostute Shubham kurutvam kalyanam Arogyam dhana sampadah Shubham kurutvam kalyanam Arogyam dhana sampadah.
Well, the collective effort of 1.25 billion Indians is transforming the country, and how? The strategy for New India at 75 is an attempt to bring science and technology, innovation, and enterprises together at the core of policy formulation and implementation. To talk more about substance of DST and strategy for a new India and about substance in DRDO, we are privileged to have with us two very eminent speakers, Professor Ashutosh Sharma, Secretary DST. Namaste and welcome, sir. And Dr. G. Satish Reddy, Chairman DRDO and Secretary Department of Defense R&D. बहुत-बहुत नमस्कार और स्वागत है आपका, sir. The topic for today is DST Azadi ka Amrit Mahotsav Discourse series, New India at 75. The Defense Research and Development Organization is the research and development arm of the Ministry of Defense. The DRDO carries out design and development of state-of-the-art weapon systems, platforms, sensors, and allied equipment. DRDO undertook product development on a war footing to fight the COVID-19 pandemic. To speak more on today's topic, we are joined by two eminent speakers, Dr. G. Satish Reddy, Chairman DRDO and Secretary Department of Defense and R&D, and Secretary DST, Professor Ashutosh Sharma. I would first like to welcome Professor Ashutosh Sharma, Secretary Department of Science and Technology. He has been the founder of the Center for Nanoscience and Center for Advanced Imaging and Chairman of Chemical Engineering and Center for Environmental Sciences, all at IIT Kanpur. He is a recipient of many scientific awards and honors, including the Infosys Prize in Engineering and Computer Science, the Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar Prize, Distinguished Alumni Awards of IIT Kanpur, and Sunny Buffalo, and honoris causa from several universities in India and abroad. He has helped initiate several new programs related to infrastructure and human capacity building, innovation and startups, R&D in advanced manufacturing, waste processing, clean energy, and the cyber physical systems, industry, academia cooperation, science communication, women scientists, and major international collaborations in the areas of priority for the nation. We welcome you, sir. It is now my pleasure to welcome today amidst us as our keynote speaker, Dr. G. Satish Reddy, Secretary, Department of Defense, R&D, and Chairman, Defense Research and Development Organization, who is the recipient of many national and international awards and honors. Dr. Reddy is the first Indian in 100 years to receive the honorary fellowship of the Royal Aeronautical Society in 2019. He was honored with Missile Systems Award in 2019 by the American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics, AIAA. Other awards conferred on Dr. Satish Reddy include the National Systems Gold Medal National Design Award, IEEE USA Award for Engineering Excellence, and of course, the Homi J. Bhabha Gold Medal. And under his successful leadership, ASAT test has taken the country to the select club of few countries having this capability. We welcome you, sir. बहुत स्वागत है आपका. And I now request Secretary DST, Professor Ashutosh Sharma, to share his inspiring thoughts to make this occasion come alive in its relevance and importance. Sir.
Thank you, Nidhi. Let me start out. There's a lot of echo. Can you please take care of that? I will start out. Uh, we are celebrating 50 years of Department of Science and Technology. 50 years is a long journey. Almost entire capacity and capability, the foundational capability in science, technology, and innovation in the nation has been seeded during these 50 years, and DST has been a very major partner in that journey. And so is DRDO. So let me first welcome Dr. Satish Reddy, Secretary DRDO. Um, and as we know, I'm so delighted to have him on this show today because DRDO has a very wide spectrum of all the technology needs of defense in the country covered. And this is very wide spectrum because it is the needs. They are in all sectors, very wide indeed. This is an extraordinary organization of the country which has been serving us so long. So thank you, Dr. Satish Reddy, for being with us. About the Department of Science and Technology started in 1971, and it has never looked back. It's again a wide spectrum department because it covers everything from atoms to astrophysics, from very small to very large, everything in between with a very wide stakeholder base. So nobody is really excluded. Anybody who's got concerns in science, technology, and innovation are fully covered by support from Department of Science and Technology. Now, let me just very quickly point out, of course, 2020 has been very exceptional year. But despite that, and despite many constraints of institutions and academic institutions shutting down during this period, constraints on supply lines, all sorts of constraints, as we know, there's still been able to make very substantial progress on multiple fronts. I would just count a couple of them. The first one is the policy domain. There is a new policy in science, technology, and innovation for the nation, STIP 2021, which should be out in a couple of months. Basically, what is it that we want to see in our policies? Of course, that they empower every sector that relates to science and technology and innovation, that we put emphasis on quality, on the profoundness of research, on the creativity of research, and not just incremental research. Now, when it comes to applied research, we have to focus increasingly on the relevance of research and the direction of that research. And indeed, that research should hook up, it should connect with the larger outside world of the government, ministries, industries, startups, farmers, what have you. So, all of that. So, policy clearly should lay out the roadmap which makes all of this possible. In addition to liberalizing and simplifying our ways of doing science, that is our architecture and processes of doing science. Um, at the same time, another policies, three more policies which are coming up very quickly, very fast during this time, and are all ready for notification. The first one is related to geospatial data policy. In fact, this would be a game changer, a turning point, if you would, in the 250-year-old history of doing surveying and mapping in the country. It's all about liberalization, which means that you ought to be able to do nearly real-time surveying and provide those maps for development, for planning, and for governance. At the same time, democratization of data is so very important because all of us actually have tons of data, but it's not useful, it is not shared, it is not in a format which can be used. So that policy actually would make sure that we have liberalization and democratization of data to reach every nook and corner for development. The third policy is about infrastructure in science and technology. So it should address, as we know, we create tens of thousands, crores worth of infrastructure every year, just related to science, technology, R&D, and innovation. Now, you see, so it requires a good insight from cradle to grave of this infrastructure. Other words, what's the efficient, optimal ways of creating infrastructure? How do you maintain it? How do you effectively use it? How do you share it? And how do you dispose of it? And the fourth policy is rather interesting. It is about scientific social responsibility, totally voluntary. What it means is that you see, our institutions, our scientists, we have something we can offer to different sections of society. What are those things that we have? We have scientific knowledge and information. We have scientific infrastructure, and we have scientific human resources. Now, using any of these instruments, if we can reach out to different sections of society and empower them, that counts for scientific social responsibility. Just to give you an example, every time I bring in a busload of students to my lab and fire up their imagination about science, about research, that counts for scientific social responsibility. Every time me as a scientist sit down with a young entrepreneur, a startup, and share my ideas as to how they can do better, that counts for scientific social responsibility. So a whole lot of exciting things have been happening during this time. DST also launched a national mission in cyber physical systems at investment of 3,660 crores and set up 25 hubs across the country that would look at, in a holistic way, the entire universe of artificial intelligence, which spans from machine learning, the fundamental algorithms, to robotics, to Industry 4.0, to IoT, to autonomous vehicles, and what have you, and the applications in every sector, from agriculture to health. A new mission in which DRDO is a big partner is coming up. This is in quantum science and technology and its applications. So as we know that future is uncertain, with using quantum technology, we hope to make it a little bit more linear and a little bit more certain. That I'm saying in a lighter vein. Okay, so what's the point? The point is we need secure communication, which is offered by quantum communication. We need fast computing, which is a promise of quantum computations, quantum sensors, quantum cryptography, the whole new world. This is a new mission which was announced in the budget at rupees 8,000 crores spread over 5 years. So many great things are happening. We don't have so much time to delve into all of that, except to say that we have to be totally future ready for the major challenges that are coming at us faster and faster. These major challenges include, for example, the thinking machines or the rise of thinking machines, sustainable development, including climate change, the rise of antimicrobial resistance, and so on. So DST has been proactive in addressing these concerns of the future and seeding the capacity which is needed, which is necessary for all of these things. One of the things about Department of Science and Technology is that almost all the manpower that you see in the scientific domain, either during PhD or masters or through various fellowships and projects, is supported by DST, so that it doesn't matter what labs, what industry actually need these people. It is going to be there, and our entire foundation is actually built on this scientific training. Tens of thousands of scientific projects, technology projects, innovation projects, incubators, startups, they are all supported by that. So, in a sense, if we are to think about a nursery of science, technology, and innovation, DST provides that nursery so that its fruits and its seeds can be thrown everywhere. Thank you, Nidhi. I would stop there.
Yes, sir, and आपके प्रोत्साहन के लिए बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद. And we all look forward to fast computing. I now request our keynote speaker for today, Dr. Satish Reddy ji, to please share his views on today's topic, India at 75. Sir.
Thank you, Nidhi. Professor Ashutosh Sharma and all the people who are present in the program, namaskar and my best wishes to you. At the outset, let me thank Professor Ashutosh Sharma for inviting me to this program and to share some of my ideas with you. DRDO, the Defense Research and Development Organization, primarily carrying out the research in the advanced areas of defense technologies which are required by armed forces in the defense of the country. DRDO has been carrying out the basic research, applied research, and translational research, developing many systems and technologies. The areas are missiles, aeronautics, armaments, naval systems, underwater systems, aircrafts, radars, and many other things. Over the years, more than about 60 years, DRDO has built many technologies in the country, and today the country has reached a stage where it has become self-reliant in many areas. Today, the country is self-reliant in the areas of missiles, radars, sonars, torpedoes, electronic warfare systems, AVAC systems, aircrafts, guns, tanks, and communication and other related systems, many things. Many systems have been developed over the years, actually, which has put India as one among the 5-6 nations in the world who possess these technologies. Talking about the ballistic missiles, you are one of the 6 or 7 nations in the world who have such capabilities today. The LCA Tejas aircraft, which has recently 83 members of the aircrafts have been ordered by Indian Air Force on HAL. We are one of the 6 nations in the world who have built their own fighter aircraft. The Arjun tank, we're again one of the 6 nations who have developed their own main battle tank. The successful ballistic missile defense program, we are one of the 4 nations who have such program. As was mentioned sometime back by Ms. Nidhi, the anti-satellite mission, Shakti, which has been successfully conducted by India, made India the 4th nation after America, Russia, and China to have neutralized a satellite in the low Earth orbit. And today, we have the world's longest range 155mm class gun with India. So these are all the various achievements over the years DRDO has brought it to the country. The ecosystem has been built in the country. There are more than about 2,000 industries which are working with DRDO today who are able to develop subsystems and systems. There are more than about 10,000 industries in the country who are supplying small parts and things like that also. The industry has graduated from build to print level to build to specifications. Similarly, academia, a lot of academic institutes have contributed in a big way. They got involved in the projects of DRDO. Many inputs which are required in this have been given by academia. Today, DRDO works with more than about 300 academic institutes with a budget of about more than 1,000 crores, with about 1,500 research associates working on the DRDO projects in various academic institutes. To encourage youth, a lot of new things have been brought in recently, wherein 500 PhD students will be joining DRDO laboratories to work on defense-related problems, part of their PhD. This is an MOU signed with Ministry of higher education and DRDO, and already there are more than about 40 students who have joined in various laboratories today. There is a course conducted in the emerging areas of cyber security and quantum technologies, a certified course with 500 students each in each subject is being conducted by DRDO to develop the skill in these emerging areas. Also, to encourage youngsters, just people who are passing out of their colleges, on any defense related problems, either what DRDO defines or the student himself comes out with the project, and as part of an incubation center in any academic institute, for the problem what has been put up, will be funding about 1 crore rupees each for carrying out the research in that particular area or a problem what has been defined. If it is an industry, then we can fund up to 10 crore rupees to see that they're able to come out with a system which is required by either armed forces or DRDO or DPSUs from that particular industry. The scheme is called Technology Development Funding, which anyone can see in the DRDO website. All the DRDO test facilities which are there across the country have been made open to any industry who can come and use the facility and develop it. Similarly, for any development, any help is required from DRDO, a hand-holding mechanism has been worked to support the industry to come out with a system. There is a new scheme called Development cum Production Partner has been introduced. Whenever a new project, a new system development is taken up, right at the beginning, an industry is taken as a partner during the development, and subsequently it becomes a production partner. The scheme is already implemented. And finally, as he goes through the development process, we'll be able to capture everything, we'll get the technology know-how, and then the production orders will be placed on the same industry. So there are lots of measures which have been taken up in the recent times to support the industry, youngsters, and academia in a big way. A lot of new technologies DRDO started working now. Professor Ashutosh Sharma just now mentioned one of the areas is quantum science and technology area, where we are working together with the cyber security, the artificial intelligence, the lasers related, the underwater communications, the underwater systems, the SWAM systems, underwater SWAM systems, the situational awareness in the ocean or space domain, many other things. A lot of new technological areas have come out where DRDO scientists have started working. Probably all of you are aware, with the guidance and directions of Honorable Prime Minister, 5 laboratories have been established which are called Young Scientist Laboratories, wherein all the scientists are below 35 years old. These laboratories are already functional. They're working in the advanced areas of artificial intelligence, asymmetric technologies, quantum technologies, and smart materials and cognitive technologies. And they're all located in various academic institutes in the country. So likewise, there are many steps have been taken up to encourage youth to get into more and more defense technologies, which I see of late. A lot of youngsters are coming to work on the defense technologies. A number of startups are approaching, and we are coming out many more new schemes to support them, to work with them very effectively. The aim is to see that we are able to concentrate on frontier technologies, carry out research in the futuristic areas, and come out with innovative products. The final goal is develop first of its kind systems with high degree of quality at a lower cost, and then not only supply to the armed forces of the country, but supply to the world, and then and a lot of prosperity to the country. I once again thank Professor Ashutosh Sharma for giving this opportunity to share some of the ideas of me with respect to DRDO. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for those very, very inspiring words. And DRDO has indeed played a stellar role in the pandemic times and always. और मैं कहना चाहूंगी सभी से जो इस प्रोग्राम को देख रहे हैं, यही परिभाषा है भारत के आजादी के अमृत महोत्सव की, जिसकी हम आज बात कर रहे हैं. So DRDO has been the insignia of the same, and many, many salutations to you from 1.25 billion Indians. Continue to inspire us. Thank you. And I now request Professor Ashutosh Sharma, sir, if I can take up the questions flashing on the screen, sir. Do I have your permission? Thank you, sir. So the first question is for you, Satish Reddy, sir. DRDO has come up with several hospitals in the COVID pandemic, as you just spoke also. Please tell us how these hospitals can fill a crucial gap in healthcare infrastructure as we now look at the third wave also. A lot of people, experts and doctors have been saying you cannot really wish away the third wave. And I would like to add, this question comes from Abhishek from Delhi University. But यहाँ मैं एक अपना छोटा सा सवाल इसमें जरूर add करना चाहूँगी. I was going through your Twitter handle yesterday, sir, at DRDO, and I was so happy to see General B.C. Joshi Hospital inaugurated at Uttarakhand. That man was a visionary for the Indian Army, and I have personally respected him with the depths of my heart. I was very proud to see that tweet. So please tell us about these healthcare system infrastructure. You've done many things in diagnostics as well.
Firstly, the hospitals, which are temporary hospitals, have been built in many cities and places in the country, which are being built also, starting with Delhi, Ahmedabad, Lucknow, Varanasi, Rishikesh, Haldwani, Gandhinagar, Jammu, Srinagar, and Guwahati, and a couple of more hospitals are coming elsewhere in the country. These hospitals are made very specific to COVID, meaning every bed in the hospital has oxygen supply, and all the ICU beds have the ventilator support, and made very specific to COVID when I say that the hospitals are maintained at a lower pressure with respect to outside pressure, so that the virus doesn't go out from the hospital. Then the air is not recirculated. From the compressors, the air comes and goes out, and still the temperature is maintained. And all other things which are required, the medical support, many of the hospitals is given by the armed forces and CAPF doctors and medical staff, and other places the state governments are providing. These are all very modular hospitals, the concept which has been brought in. We call it as flying hospital. You can take anywhere, like the way we have built in Guwahati. the structure has been taken from here, assembled there in a modular way, and is built in about 15 to 18 days. And so these hospitals, when the COVID patients number is rising, provide a lot of support to them, where you require lots of beds, which actually in a routine hospitals, they all have to be converted as COVID hospitals, not treating the other people. Whereas here, the complete hospital is dedicated for COVID and built very specifically for COVID and supports them. And similarly, if any third wave is there, all these hospitals which have been built, which have said now 10 have been built and some of them are being built, will be taking the load of the patients if at all there is a third wave, providing them all the necessary support. The government is discussing with various people what type of a nature of third wave can be there and what type of an equipment which is required, and gear up for that equipment and see that the oxygen supply is also provided. In fact, Government of India, Honorable Prime Minister from PM CARES Fund has ordered through DRDO to build 850 oxygen plants which generate about 1,000 liters per minute oxygen to establish them across all the districts of the country. So these are all the measures which are taken up to get ready for any third wave it is there, not only just supporting the present scenario. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Indeed, wonderfully answered. And it would be really, really wonderful to have these flying hospitals moved in various rural areas, as you rightly mentioned. And we've also spoken a lot about the 2DG wonder drug from DRDO at our India Science programs. Professor Sharma, the next question is for you. And it is that, sir, in the cyber physical system, how can AI help in driving remote autonomous diagnostics for COVID-19? This question comes from Keshav from JNU, sir.
So very good. I think you see all the future technologies and products, they are actually convergence of technologies of communication, computing at the edge, getting all the information which is relevant for making a decision, making an autonomous decision and acting on that decision. So this is what is called an IoT or a cyber physical system. Now, AI, which is the artificial intelligence, is the heart of making decisions based on the data and information that we have. So you can easily imagine that diagnostics and indeed telemedicine as a whole would gain tremendously by introduction of artificial intelligence. To give you an example, let us say in COVID-19 times, you want diagnostics. We all know that this particular virus affects lungs in a particular way, which can be differentiated, for example, as lungs are affected in different kind of disease states. So all of that information can be converted to an algorithm. So if you were to upload an X-ray, even a low resolution X-ray from a remote place, that can be analyzed by AI algorithm and can precisely do diagnostics and then upload back the results. So clearly that this is going to be of tremendous importance and impact in telemedicine, in remote diagnostics, in fact, remote everything. Now, one may say, okay, but how do we get X-rays, for example, in remote places if they don't have it? So cyber physical systems, they always work with something physical and something cyber. So X-ray machines, which are portable, which are inexpensive, have also been developed. These X-ray machines, inexpensive machines, could be taken to nook and corner of the country, every little place, so that we are able to upload these images. In a matter of seconds, diagnosis could be made, which is very precise diagnosis. Some of these tools have been developed by the hubs that have been established in cyber physical systems. Recently, there was a product from the Art Park, which is the hub at Indian Institute of Science at Bangalore, and it has accuracy of diagnosis of 99%. Other words, whether you look at RT-PCR diagnosis and then you correlate it with the diagnosis which is done based on chest X-ray, for example. And similarly, it is clear if you look at ventilators. Dr. Satish Reddy talked about many things that DRDO developed. And I know, for example, in addition to oxygen, ventilators also were developed there, world-class ventilators. Now these ventilators, and there were several others, for example, from IITs and so on, they were funded by Department of Science and Technology. In fact, over 100 startups were funded for them to develop relevant products and technologies. And a whole lot of those technologies are related to digital technologies, and a whole lot of those are related to remote diagnostics. So many things are coming up with great speed. Many of them, in fact, are nearing completion and nearing commercialization as well. Really, the possibilities for the future are limitless in this direction. Because if you can, have, let's say, if you don't have doctors available, then a ventilator with IoT and some decision making and data pulling and data crunching abilities can do minor adjustments based on the various data which is obtained from the patient. So a whole lot of these functions that we have totally manual today, many of them would be taken over at least partially by algorithms which are driven by artificial intelligence. I'm not saying they will replace doctors. They would not for foreseeable future, anyways. But this would be a great help, especially in a country like India, where the per capita availability of doctors, especially in rural areas, in small towns, and especially of specialists, may be more limited than elsewhere. So many fantastic examples of this are coming through. I'm very optimist about it, that many of these efforts would bring fruits in remote monitoring, remote diagnosis, and even making decisions, which, for example, to increase flow rate, to decrease flow rate, if you are on the oxygen and stuff like that. So indeed, great potential there, and much of it is being realized at speed and scale. And of course, the technology startups have been at the forefront of this revolution. And DRDO has done fantastic things. Dr. Satish Reddy didn't have enough time actually to talk about extraordinary things that DRDO actually did during COVID-19 times and are continuing to do it. A whole lot of it has to do with repurposing of our very deep scientific manpower, insights, and infrastructure. And there's a big message there. And we learned it during COVID-19 times that if we have resolve, if we have a common shared purpose, if we have clear goals, then our scientists can actually deliver in time and with the required quality, which is the global quality. I haven't any doubt about it. There's so many examples of that happening time and again. So that should also be our mantra for doing science and technology during what you may call outside the time of virus, which is during the peace times, which is to have a clear shared purpose, a clear goal, specifications about what we need to develop, and then have government, startups, industry, and academia work together. If that happens, then, like top of the class ventilators or diagnostics, they developed within matter of months, where it might have taken years or even decades outside of it, not just in India, but even other countries worked for several years to be able to make these things. So if we don't have luxury of time, and we indeed certainly looking at the technology future comes at us at ever faster rate. And so we shouldn't be complacent. We shouldn't be thinking we have a lot of time. Right. So these are some of the important lessons, not just related only to AI, but to leverage all the futuristic technologies today and be fully ready for that future. You had also mentioned third wave. I just want to quickly point out that while there may be third wave, fourth wave, whatever number of waves, and then the pandemic may get converted into an endemic at some point, most important thing for us to remember is a lot of things that are going to happen in the future, starting from the third wave. We are the writer of that future, each one of us. If we were to take actions which are appropriate actions, which are required from each one of us, we can certainly greatly mitigate that. We can certainly control the intensity and spread of that particular third wave or the subsequent challenges that are going to come from there. So we must not underestimate the value of our actions related to technology, related to appropriate behavior, related to vaccines, related to all of that. So by now we are all fully aware of what those things are, which need to be taken care of. We should never ever find ourselves again in the same situation that happened during the second wave. That it happened very fast and it came with us at a great ferocity, but the lessons have been learned, and those should be put in practice. Artificial intelligence, machine learning, and indeed all of that universe of artificial intelligence is going to have a great bearing on our preparations. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And indeed, we need to introspect, we need to do course correction. And as you rightly said and pointed out, we cannot throw caution to the wind at any time. Mr. Reddy, the next question is for you again. And this is from Vaishali from Kolkata. She wants to know about hypersonic technology demonstrator vehicles that DRDO has successfully demonstrated flight tests on, and what is the vision for this in future?
The one which has been tested last year is called Hypersonic Test Demonstration Vehicle. Basically, the hypersonic vehicle flies within the atmosphere at greater speeds of 6 Mach and above. So the technologies which are involved into it are, one is the material technologies, wherein the materials have to withstand the very high temperature and the high strength materials. When the vehicle is traveling in the atmosphere, the type of temperatures which are generated out of the atmospheric friction are very high. And second thing is, when you try to maneuver the vehicle, the type of loads which come onto the materials are very high. So this is one important thing when you are working on a hypersonic vehicle, what you need to know. Second, the engine, what needs to work at that atmosphere, at that speed, is another important thing. The scramjet engine needs to be developed. So these things have been incorporated in our hypersonic test demonstration vehicle. For a time of about 23 seconds, we operated it and seen that everything has functioned well, and the data has been taken for a lot of analysis. And the further course of action in this is we are going to do some more experiments in that direction to realize finally a hypersonic vehicle for the country, which is very important because the vehicle travels at a very high speed at lower altitudes. So the radars cannot detect, and the vehicle will be able to enter into the enemy's territory very fast without being caught by the radars. So we will be having a couple of more experiments in the coming years. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And I hope that answers your question, Vaishali. We have yet another question for you, Professor Sharma, sir. Somebody wants to know from Xavier's, and this is Anurag from Xavier, and he's asking us about startups, incubators, and collaborations, especially the response to Nidhi for COVID 2.0 and Vajra.
Okay. Yeah, of course, I always like to first point out that there are two different knowledge systems that work everywhere. The first one of them is invention, the other is innovation. Invention basically, is what we do in universities, we do in R&D labs and so on, IITs. Basically, it produces new knowledge. Innovation ecosystem, on the other hand, makes use of this knowledge to create new opportunities, in society and in economy. So innovation, of course, is so extremely important, because in the absence of it, we may keep producing whatever knowledge, it just piles up, but there is no output for it. The DST in the last 5 years has created about 80 new technology incubators. And the total number of incubators supported by DST is about 140. So you see, more than half of them, in fact, have been created in the last 5 years as compared to last 50 years before that. This is fantastic, because the time for innovation and startups has come. And no matter what happens, if it is an idea whose time has not come, it will not take off. Is right now is the time that that we can roll up our sleeves and really get into it. The Nidhi that you talked about is a program very similar. We started very similar to what Dr. Satish Reddy said about DRDO innovation program. We started that about 5.5 years ago. Basically, that you give a seed funding of up to 1 crore for startups. And also, there's a prototyping grant for about 10 lakhs. So before you get into startups, you need to be prepared and all that. Now, all of that actually helped us greatly during the pandemic time, during COVID, 19, the first wave. More than 100 startups got into developing the relevant products and technologies. Dozens of those are now commercialized and they're in the market, and their quality is better than the best in many of the cases. Now, you talked about COVID 2, Nidhi COVID 2. This is basically targeted now to the advanced techniques and refining them more as to what happened during COVID one time. It's also about, you see, during the first wave of COVID, our oxygen requirements were not under great stress. So a whole lot of these oxygen technologies, oxygen concentrators, etc., did not develop at that time commercially. One is focusing on those kind of things which are needed now. Also, today our diagnostics has to be more advanced than what it was, say, RT-PCR kits, for example, during the first wave. Now, what are the differences? For example, if you are doing antibody test, you need to know not only that you have antibodies, you may also wish to know the quantity of these antibodies of different kinds, so that one is able to monitor the changes in antibody concentration that happens after vaccination, for example, or it happens after infection. So it's good not only for research but also for clinical management of the disease, COVID-19. So there are more things happening. Also, we have more mutations. So since the first wave, we know that there are variants of the virus. So our test methods, our diagnostics ought to be able to pick up these and not produce false negatives, for example. So diagnostics is developing in many different advanced areas. At the same time, other things like oxygen, concentrators and stuff, they're developing. In response to the second call, COVID 2, we have received more than 300 applications from startups to focus on many of these aspects and other aspects which have become more critical now. And very quickly, we would be able to support more than maybe 70, 80 of these startups to start producing these products. In fact, turns out that 3 of those startups are already putting up oxygen concentrators, really world-class designs, commercially. They already received orders in many thousands and so on. So these are something, this is about building the basic capacity. All right. So every time something new challenge comes, then one is not waking up and starting from ground zero. At the same time, there are facilities like we know that BSL 3 and 4 facilities are in short supply in country, especially in R&D labs and academia. What are these? These are biosafety level 3 and 4 labs. in order to be able to work with the virus, in order to characterize it, in order to look at the behavior of the virus, you need these labs. And they are, like I said, very few in numbers, certainly not enough for the activities that you need to drive in this particular area. So 12 new such labs have been funded on this safety level 3 and 4, so that in academia, in R&D labs, people are able to do precise experiments on this virus as well as any other threat or challenge that may arise in the future. Other words, we have to have foundational strengths in all of these areas, whether it is about mathematical modeling of pandemic, whether it is about the appropriate products, technologies, artificial intelligence, futuristic technologies, all of that. If we have a fundamental background in it, then any challenge that comes can be effectively addressed, and it can be done very, very quickly. And indeed, all the success stories that we see during this time is very important for us to understand that all those successes got built because of the inherent strength of our scientific training, our infrastructure, our informational resources that have been being built over the years and decades, in fact, and more so in the last 5 years, 6 years, and so. Because, of course, infrastructure also ages. So you have to keep replacing it and also have to be totally future ready in terms of the infrastructure and the knowledge that we need to have. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. And I hope that answers your question, Anurag. We have yet another question for you, Dr. Reddy, and this is from my city and your city, presumably, Hyderabad. This is University of Hyderabad, Isha. She's asking about Dhruvastra, that DRDO has developed anti-tank guided missiles. Please tell us more.
DRDO has developed multiple anti-tank missiles. One is the Nag missile. Nag is a fire and forget anti-tank missile, and the Dhruvastra is helicopter-launched anti-tank missile with a longer range. When I say it is a fire and forget missile, when you are launching the missile has already detected the tank, and after that, there is no communication from the ground equipment to the missile at all. The missile is continuously looking at the tank and seeing the image of the tank and guides towards the tank and goes and attacks. There are strong technical issues here. Basically, what happens is in these tanks, when you are looking at it, and in the Indian conditions, the temperatures vary widely. It's minus 42 plus 55 or plus 60. So particularly when you are there in the desert, surrounded by all the sand, which has got a sand temperature of 60, 65, 70, and the tank is placed, and then you are looking at the thermal image of the tank, it is extremely difficult because the tank got submerged in the our external temperature which is there. So you need to extract a lot of intelligent features in that and try to correlate that and see that you are able to identify the tank with all this environment which is there and try to attack that. So this is the fundamental issue which has been successfully resolved or ensured that these are all issues are overcome, and the both Nag, which is ground launched, or a BMP launched, or the Dhruvastra, which is a helicopter launch, both have successfully completed their trials, and soon they will be getting into the armed forces. So, and that paves the way for many more anti-tank missiles like a man-portable ATGM or a much longer range anti-tank guided missiles or will be developed very soon in the country. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. And the next question now is for Professor Sharma. And tell us about the variety of technologies for being developed for vaccines, sir. Yes, this is from Sudhir from IIT. Managing the cold chain infrastructure is very critical. So, on those lines, he wishes to know.
Yes, of course, the cold chain infrastructure is critical, and there are different kind of cold. I mean, in the whole chain, there are different stations with different requirements, where you would do bulk storage, where you would do transport, where you would have the last mile connect to their distribution. Let me just give you a couple of examples. We have developed sensors, IoT sensors, that would keep track of the temperature variations that may happen during the transport and handling and final distribution of vaccines. So it tells you, I mean, it records, it logs in the entire temperature history of the sample or the crate or the box which is being transported. So this is a very good way of telling whether these vaccines have not been exposed to conditions which would render them unfit for consumption. Very critical information that is required in order so that sometimes if the cold chain is broken and stuff that we still have effective vaccines. Similarly, while transporting, one of the critical requirements is while transporting these vaccines in villages, the last mile connectivity, if you would, and keeping them in small places and stuff where there may not be continuous electricity, for example. So there are many challenges, and there are new ways of storing these vaccines that have developed, which are based on, for example, on phase change materials. So you have these boxes. This phase change material basically it takes in heat and then it releases, so that you can maintain the cold conditions. Basically, when the material solidifies and melts, there is a change in the temperature, and so that way one can maintain the temperature even without local electricity being available. And thinking about that, there are very many things, many products which have developed uniquely for Indian conditions. There may be ambu bag ventilators that may not require continuous electricity, and similarly, many other things that we should ensure that they are basically made right for Indian conditions. And so, I gave you a couple of examples of maintaining cold chain and ensuring that the vaccines are delivered under the right set of conditions of storage and transport. Thank you.
Informative information. My next question is now to you, Dr. Reddy.
Yeah, please.
So please tell us about the major achievements in the year 2020-21 with respect to Naval Light Command Aircraft, LCA. Somebody who's interested in joining the Indian Navy, Saurabh from University. That's what the question says.
It's a very important question, rather I say that. It's a major milestone as far as the country is concerned. The naval version of the Tejas aircraft, LCA, has landed on Vikramaditya, the aircraft carrier. It's one of the very difficult tasks for any fighter aircraft to land on an aircraft carrier. When you look at a normal aircraft, when it lands on a normal runway, it comes, levels itself, and then slowly lands on the runway and then moves ahead. And then you have 2 kilometers or 3 kilometers runway is available to you. Whereas here, you can't come level, you come and straight hit the deck of the aircraft carrier. It's more like it's a crash landing sort of thing. This is number one. Number two, as the carrier, the length is available only about 200 meters, then you need to slow down very fast. So after you landing it by hitting onto the deck, there will be a rope and on the deck, and then there will be a hook on the aircraft. The hook has to engage to the rope and then give the necessary retardation to the aircraft. This is another important issue. Then we are taking off. Because you have a very short runway, you haven't really picked up your velocity, and so the aerodynamics do not work. So when you're taking off, really, you're just ejecting yourself, and then after some time, only you will be getting the velocity where you can really apply the control. In fact, this particular portion is completely automatized. It is extremely difficult for a human pilot to handle that situation. So, to do all these things, before going to the sea, we have built in Goa a shore-based facility simulating the deck of Vikramaditya, and then number of experiments were carried on there, and then came to the sea. And from there to the sea, the difference is there on the shore-based facility, it is a stable platform. Whereas here, the platform itself is moving, oscillating, and all that. So in that conditions, you are landing and taking off. So these are all the various things, the control laws and the algorithms and the autopilot design, and then all these mechanisms, what I've said, are very, very, very critical technologies and designs, which actually India has successfully established, which paves the way now for developing any type of a fighter aircraft for the naval applications. Thank you.
And I think it further also paves the way for आत्मनिर्भर भारत, जिसके बारे में माननीय प्रधानमंत्री हमेशा बात करते रहते हैं. I hope that answers.
This is one of
Your
the
question.
major technologies systems which has been proven. Now we can say that India can build any fighter aircraft either for Air Force or for the Navy also. So that's how the programs are coming up also in the country, making the country completely Atmanirbhar.
Thank you so much, sir. The next question is for you, Professor Sharma, sir. We are running out of time, but I'm afraid we'll take two more questions with both your permission. This is very, very interesting, and I just saw this, sir. How can science help in preserving our heritage? Is there something new that could be perhaps come up in this field, sir? This question comes from
Yeah,
Shreya.
like you pointed out, Nidhi ji, we are running out of time, so I'll be very, very short. Indeed,
So,
science can do everything. So it can also restore and preserve heritage. To give you a few examples, these very old paintings coming from Ajanta, Ellora, all these murals which are fading, which are chipping, which are getting lost. How do you reconstruct them? So one idea is, of course, the preservation for the future generations. What kind of coatings could be used? What is the effect of light? What is the effect of humidity, temperature, and so on? Second aspect is about restoring these many of the things which have been lost or partially destroyed, and so on. So there also, artificial intelligence and machine learning is playing a very important role. In fact, in general, the cyber physical systems are playing a great role in doing that. Reconstructing, for example, a faded painting, a mural, or even reconstructing parts of it. This can all be done very effectively using machine learning techniques, because machine learning is basically by showing lots of these murals from that era. The machine can actually learn about what are the elements of that particular painting, what kind of colors and hues and shades have been used. So a whole lot of this can be reconstructed. It is also true with the architecture. So part of the, some structure may be lost, but if you know what kind of architecture was there, if you look at similar parts from the surviving structures, and then machine can learn all of that and reconstruct the three-dimensionality of that structure which might have been lost. To give you another example, using the cyber physical systems principles, um, there were a lot of projects that were supported that came up with technologies that, for example, 3D print any monument or any of the structures. But at the same time, you can also take a virtual walk in these structures. So this is called mixed reality. For example, you take a little pen light, a laser light, you define your path in that 3D printed structure, a replica of that monument. So you can define your path. Then you would see what you would have seen if you were walking on that path in that monument. You can even change the conditions of atmosphere. It could be morning walk, it could be evening walk. So you see shadows. You can stop anywhere and you can get more information about any of the elements that you want to know more about. So this way, the whole idea is, of course, to preserve, to restore, but also to present and to reach people that otherwise physically would not have reached all of these heritage in order to learn more about it. So you reach many more people. You basically present to them all these monuments and all this stuff, art and so on, the heritage that otherwise they may actually not have seen physically. And it can be even beyond the physical. I mean, the information content, the knowledge, the thrill, the excitement, it can be made very realistic. Even while visiting a monument, depending on how good your guide is and how much time you have, you may not know as much about it, its history, its culture, its elements of architecture, and so on. Who are the kind of people who live there? All of that, it can be bundled up in these cyber physical replicas, if you would, of these monuments, of these works of art. So this is about democratizing heritage. It's about preserving it. It's about presenting it. It's about restoring it. All of these things are made possible by technology and increasingly by artificial intelligence based technologies. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, and wonderfully put. I mean, our art, ethnicity, culture, demography, and everything that India stands for can be preserved. जैसे आपने कहा, विज्ञान हर जगह है और विज्ञान सब कुछ कर सकता है. And on that note, I'll ask you, Dr. Reddy, one more question. I'm clubbing up too to make this quick. DRDO has come up with a lot of diagnostic products like acoustic throat infection analyzers, crowd temperature monitoring system. Mainly, this person from JNU, Rashi, she wants to know whether the crowd temperature monitoring system can be used and how. If you could perhaps share an example. And also, she's asking a sub question to your previous answer where you spoke about oxygen plants, sir. She also wishes to know that can DRDO set up other plants in rural areas, and if you have set them up, she would like to know about them so that she can study for her some exams that are coming up, perhaps UPSC. So,
Okay, good. Firstly, a number of diagnostic kits have been developed by DRDO. One is an X-ray analyzer. It's just an app where it analyzes the X-ray and then gives you whether the patient is a COVID patient or not, and all those details and all that. Then the acoustic analyzer is another one, which is one more laboratory of DRDO, which has developed, again, going through the uh, acoustic analysis and finding out whether the person is COVID infected or not. So, and then recently we also have developed another thing which is launched on 1st of June, the antibodies test kit, which actually just takes about an hour or so, and a very low cost one at 75 rupees. That's also is another one which is developed by DRDO. The crowd temperature monitoring system actually is very useful. As you know that the COVID, the initial test, what you see is the temperature of the person, the body temperature of the person, which you monitor it, whether it is an airport or other places or even offices when a lot of people are coming in the right at the beginning, and you need not one person go and check every person, person by person, whereas this looks at all the people and sees collectively, or collected in sense at one shot, all the people's temperature is monitored, and then you detect that, and then you are able to say that the person has got temperature, and so he should be isolated. So this becomes very useful, and that's how that technology has been developed in the year 2020, has been given to technology to industry, and likewise many other technologies have been given to industry. This also has been given. Um, Coming to the question of the PSA plants, the oxygen plants. The oxygen plants have been developed. A lot of industries, the technologies have been given. And as I said, Honorable Prime Minister, through PM case, what he has asked to make, 850 are being made, which are in the various districts of the country. To go to the places, small rural places where 30 beds, 20 beds, or 50 beds are there. There are smaller plants also which have been developed, which are 250 LPM or 500 liters per minute plants have been developed. This also have been transferred to 10 more industries. So a lot of state governments are coming forward. A lot of hospitals are also coming forward, and they're ordering on these industries. The necessary technological hand-holding is done by DRDO along with the all other support like geolite and other things, arranging everything, or quality support and others. And so those industries are also started supplying to the various uh, smaller hospitals and also even bigger hospitals as per the need of it, based on the orders which are given by the state government or uh, the hospitals itself. So there are plenty of these plants now. Capability to manufacture is available in the country with the industries, with about 15 to 20 industries manufacturing them. So it is very easy to get them and incorporate it in various places. DRDO basically is not a production agency. DRDO is an R&D organization. The DRDO has developed these technologies for the fighter aircraft Tejas. When the aircraft goes to higher altitudes like 30,000 feet and all that, the oxygen what is required for the pilot is developed on board, called onboard oxygen generation system. The same thing has been expanded and converted to generate a larger oxygen, which is 1,000 liters per minute, and that technology is transferred to the industry. So industry produces, and the governments or the private parties or the hospitals can order on those industries and incorporate wherever it is required in the entire country. Thank you.
More questions flashing up, but because of paucity of time, we request you, Reddy sir, to please join us on another occasion. There are several questions, even on the 2DG Wonder Medicine coming our way. And with this, we come to an end of the question answer round. I thank Professor Ashutosh Sharma, Secretary DST, and our very esteemed guest, keynote speaker for today, G. Satish Reddy, for sharing his vision for DSD Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav Discourse Series New India at 75.
First, I very quickly want to again thank Dr. Satish Reddy for being with us. Next thing I want to tell you is, next time you call him, ask me less questions. Because, we are the host, he is a guest, you ask him more questions, so we know more about DRDO, what they're doing. And so I hope that, not in distant future, we will have him again and you ask him more.
Not in the distant future. I'm requesting him online, sir, to come on our next one, because I actually have about 50 to 60 questions here right now. Okay. And I'm sure he's a busy man. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Sharma, giving me this opportunity. And thank you, Nidhi, for an excellent conducting of the program. Thank you. And thanks everyone who is present in the program.
Thank you so much. And in the end, we believe that economic transformation cannot happen without public participation. Development must become a Jan Andolan. Let us therefore combine our energies to achieve the target outlined in the strategy for India at 75 by fulfilling the aspirations of a new India. And on this note, this is a wrap on this edition of India at 75 series. I request our guests to please rise for the national anthem.
Jana Gana Mana Adhinayaka Jaya He Bharat Bhagya Vidhata Punjab Sindh Gujarat Maratha Dravida Utkala Vanga Vindhya Himachala Yamuna Ganga चल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मागे गाहे तव जय गाथा जनगण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 जय